Welcome to the Learning and Development channel, where you can learn, lead, and make a difference.
So just two more slides. Alright, I've been telling you earlier that there are 4 levels of inquiry. So those are the levels of inquiry. There's a 1 page of information on your module. So there goes confirmation, structured, guided, and open inquiry. When you set your own questions already, you set your own methods, that is the highest form of inquiry, and that's open inquiry. So those investigatory projects being required for you to make, that's open inquiry. But the thing is that before our kids are ready for open inquiry, we need to guide them through 1, 2, 3. Dapat ma-expose mo na sila doon. So kanina, that was 1 for you. This 1 o'clock, you will do 2, level 2 inquiry. And tomorrow morning, you're going to do level 2 inquiry. And before you all go home, we will start you with a level 4 inquiry. Di ba 2 days? 2 days lang yun. Isang taon namin tinuturo. Alright. The fact that when your students are doing investigation, there are times when they see divergent observations. Observations which deviate from what's expected. So what do you do with it? Do you report it or do you reject the data? Yes, you report the data. And this is where some of the science process skills are necessary, in the sense that whenever you're doing an investigation or an experiment or whatever it is in science, then whatever you observe, put it in. Put it in. Kahit masakit sa loob nyo, kasi who's expecting 13, tapos nawalan siya ng kulay. You put it in, but here's the thing. Know how to explain your observation. Get that? Know how to explain. Because the last question, this now ties up to the last question, what's the pH of the river water? Is it acidic, basic, etc. when contaminants are put into it? That's a question that has no fixed answer. And that's where the interpretation skills come in. Dun sa mga bata. This is where, as a teacher, you also come in. Because you need to have probe questions. Bakit ito nakita? Sabi ng bata, wala, kasi yun lang talaga ma. Why? Because in science and technology, we're always interested about the why. Why is it like that? So deviations from what's expected, those are acceptable, but make sure that you're able to explain it. I hope that somehow sinks in. Kala nyo lang, may lagay yung fish para doon. Okay. Now, in your column, go back to that page in the module where you have the levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and then what is in. So that was a structured inquiry, and you're expected not to know the answer, the solution at the end. That's why you have, what happened? As compared to level 1 inquiry, where if you read about it, then actually, this is going to be something I know, and this is going to be something I see and expecting this. But for the second level, the answer again is not fixed. And so interpretation has to come in here. Alright. Now how about level 3? Okay. So again, the process of inquiry covers 3. So number 1 is you ask a question or you state a problem. And then number 2 is you come up with what you call hypothesis testing, or your experiment or your method. So you come up with a method to answer the question or problem that's been identified. And then of course, the third one has to do with your solution or interpretation. So that condenses the whole process of the scientific investigation method. So you've got 3. You've got the question, you've got the method, and then you've got the interpretation. But we know, if you go back to our diagrams where there's the cyclical, etc., that in between those processes are many different steps. Okay? So take a look. Meron kong leveling. Yun yung mga bars dyan. So, when you go to level 3 inquiry, you're just given the question. So, this is good for students maybe in grade 8, grade 9, where there is more independent learning. But for grade 7, do not expect them to come up with to do level 3 or level 4 inquiry. So grade 8, grade 9, they can do guided inquiry in which there's just a question or problem. What happens is that the students design their own method to answer a question. That is what you will do tomorrow morning for the spaghetti bridge competition. So it's an engineering design inquiry. Okay, now for level 4, you don't have the question, you don't have the method, you don't have the solution. This is now the SIP that you are familiar with. Everything is conceptualized by the students. In our case, we sit in as advisors, but even the conceptualization process, we're not part of it. It really has, the idea has to come from the students. When they come to us, they will ask for our mga typical na, Ma'am, do you have a suggestion as to one topic for us to do? Of course, none. Ganun kami. We don't give suggestions as to what topics they will be doing. Why? It's a 2-year implementation of a project. When everything is failing, it's easy for the students to say, mo, ginhibang lamisan, ginasilip pa ako, nabili ko to gusto. So it's always, what are you interested in? It always goes back to, what exactly are you interested in? You're interested in medicine, but then your groupmate is interested in robotics? So, do we tell them, no, you cannot group together? No. Middle ground. Come up with something. Medical application using technology. Yung mga ganon. It has to be, again, it has to be your interest. Should it be the teacher's interest? Why not? Pero, kayong teachers, kasi diba, ang role natin as teachers is to inspire them to think. Pwede nyo, what about? O di ba interesado ka sa mga butterflies? What about if you study this, what do you have? What do you know about it? You guide them. So that's one of the indicators in which not indicator, but that's one of the ways by which we're able to make our students think. And when you just listen to what they have without any influence na itong gusto ko mangyari sa inyo, you will actually see that a lot of these kids have brilliant ideas. Many times also, their brilliant ideas are not anchored on the realities of life. Ano ba yun? I will do genetic splicing. I've read about CRISPR. Ano yun? Parang alam ko lang CRISPR nasa refrigerator. Parang ganon. It's about this, about that. Okay. So as a teacher, you ask, so what do you need in terms of equipment? The laboratory is in the US, but I have a relative in the US. Okay, stop. Masyado ka nangangarap. Diba? So it's always that. Everything, the brilliant ideas have to be married with realities, with the feasibility of your situation. All right. So there you go. I hope that's clear. Now, eto na. Wala. Okay. The most difficult task for a student, and even for us adults, to come up with try to remember your thesis. Nag-masters, etc. Di ba iniiyak kayo kasi wala kayong problema? Problema ko talaga, wala pa akong problema. So that's the same thing with our students. The conceptualization of a problem is a really challenging task. So as a teacher, you don't give them independence all throughout. Guide it. Ask the questions. Point them to directions. Ito, punta ka sa source na to. How about this, etc. Because coming up with a smart problem is not automatic. One of the things I can share with you as a teacher in research is, usually we have 1 to 2 quarters developing a research question. If you're a student and you go through the senior faculty like me, then it will even be more rigorous because marami kami pinapacheck. There are certain things that need to be developed needs to be revised. Because the thing is that when you have legit questions, research problems, everything falls into place. Mabilis ang experimentation, mabilis ang development, mabilis ang review of related literature kasi tama yung tanong mo. Again, one of the observations I made whenever I sit as a judge in a science congress is this. So many questions are poorly thought out, they're poorly stated, and then there's also this thing about research questions being interchanged with research objectives. Yung mga ganon. But you know, these things, again, do we forgive the teachers for not teaching that? The teachers, especially science teachers, are not taught how to teach research. Kami, when we started as a research teacher, we're looking for materials and we did not find any. So, nagangapa ka. So, we learned by doing. But 25 years after, it's something that's automatic. Para siyang, ano ang tawag rin? Para pag nag-drive na everything is automatic. I forgot. Parang ganun, muscle memory siya. Ginawa na talaga ng muscle memory. Parang nag-drive. Muscle memory, because it's something I've been doing for decades. So, I can sit in a panel and know when something is manipulated or not. I can sit in a panel or I can sit with the students and giniinuwat mula ako. But that's, decades of experience. And you don't have that. So, what I'm telling you this is, why am I telling you this? It has to do with the fact that as you advise your students, you're also learning. And that's okay. If you need to ask someone, call a friend, tama ba hindi na ako hinahinakal? Then why not? Diba, why not? This is already the age of collaboration. So kayo din, if you feel like challenging your teacher, Ma'am, magandili siya na ako nabasahan, then go ahead. Because in the world of science, we're supposed to be accepting of critiquing. Not criticisms, critiquing. So, hindi yun na parang nakakapangit ka. Pinipersonal mo ako, di kaya ako bulong, mga sulit. Kasi parang mga ganyan masyadong sensitive sa buhay. So, no, don't. So again, before I go into this one, the smart problem, let me tell you about the golden thread. The golden thread in research is composed of three things: aims, objectives, problems. Aims, objectives, problems. So the research aim, the research objective, and the research problem. Sometimes this thread, the objective and the problem, are married. So they become just one. So how is this different? The aim, the research aim, tells you why is there a need for your research. Why? Because I'm interested. It's not going to work that way because not only should you be interested, but it's also something that should address a gap in knowledge. Do not be doing something which is just confirmatory. Because if that's the case, that's good for your classroom. Confirmation inquiry. But if you want to, there has to be a gap in knowledge. So, what are you interested in?
Robotics and medicine.
Robotics and medicines. What in particular about robotics and medicines?
And also environment. When I was in in junior high school, in our school, I decided to actually venture into innovating a product that helps the user of the environment by implementing the concept of robotics.
How is that? So how did you do that?
First, I asked help from an expert from our school, and it's basically the concept of spectrophotometry, which is to be portabilized. So, since the spectrophotometer is not available when it comes to local areas in Calbayog City, since it is more expensive and it's also just available in DOST, which is far away from Calbayog, so I decided to actually make this more make this more easier for the locals of Calbayog to maintain the safeness of rivers.
So what you were coming up with was something portable. Why was there a need for you to do that? Because
We lack the spectrophotometer in Calbayog, since the nearest lab that has the ability to actually measure the quality of water in Calbayog is in the OST, meaning it's far away from Calbayog. So I decided to make that research in order to help the locals, and of course to maintain the aesthetic and health of the river. Okay.
that was long, right? But we see here that this girl here, this lady here knows just why it was she was developing something. Because your research aim is the purpose of why you're doing the research. The purpose. When you are asked for the significance, that's actually the purpose. Kaya ano? Why? Why are we studying this? What is it for? So those are the questions being answered by your research aim. Now, next. How about the objective? The aim is general. How to get to that aim? General siya. Hindi mo kailangan na lahat yan masagot. You don't need to address everything. Like, I want the river of Calbayog to be clean. I want the people to have this device so that it's more convenient for them. You just focus on something targeted. You target something that's workable. That's your objective. So how do you do this? I will come up with a device that will measure, ano ginawa ng robot mo? Nakapatent.
Basically, it follows the concept of spectrophotometry, wherein it uses different the concept of sun colors. The spectrums and colors. Then the light is being absorbed by the water. Tapos may this device na nagme-measures and absorption based on the formula of Beer-Lambert's law.
What she's actually saying is that there is this spectrophotometer that measures absorption, which is directly proportional to concentration. Once you know the absorption of a solution, then you will know the concentration. And the concentration is supposed to give you the amount of, say, a pollutant or something. Understandable? Yeah. Lizzie Beer-Lambert. Hindi nyo kilala, no? Lolo niya yon. Okay. So, there. She's coming up, she's creating a device. That's her objective. The objective is to create a device. So, let's try to put this into what you are familiar with. You've got the aim, you place that under your significance of the study. Naalala nyo yung parts? Significance of the study, and you also put that in the background because we're talking about the gap in knowledge. So the background of your study has that. And then your research objective is actually, we have a rule. If it is developmental, if it's a developmental study like developing or creating a device, we require research objectives because it's easier for the students to state it that way. But if the study is experimental or descriptive, or there is testing, then we require a research question. How are the two different? How's the objective different from the question? There's one school of thought in which they say that the research question or research problem is different from the objective. And then there is another school of thought which says that the two can actually be married interchangeable. So what we're using is, because these are high school students, we use the research question or the statement of the problem. And then if it's turned into a declarative sentence, it becomes an objective. But if it's in question form, it is a research question. Nakuha yun? Hindi. Example. Let's say that the students are coming up with a system, library system. So what do you want to do? A library system for our school library because they don't have a system. So the student is tasked to come up with a question. Hindi pwede question, what is the library system that we can come up with? Because the answer is your problem. If the problem is answerable by the researcher himself or herself, then that's a pseudo problem. Mahirap siya. So sabi namin sa mga bata, okay, what is it that you want to do? I want to develop, or first I want to design a system. Anong tawag doon? Management system? Management system? Okay. We want to create a management system. So what do you want to do after creating it? We want to develop it. And then after that, we want to test it, evaluate it. So what we do, because it's difficult to put that in question form, is we ask for the research objective. So, rule namin yun, pag-research pag-developmental objectives. In fact, we have just 3 sub-problems. The research objectives, specific objectives. First, specific objective, the creation or the design. Second, development. Third is evaluation or testing. Ganun lang yun. However, for experimental research or descriptive research, like environmental assessment, we require questions. Because, especially for experimental, there's hypothesis testing. And because there's hypothesis testing, there has to be a question which is answerable by an experiment or a hypothesis testing experiment. Let's say, is there a difference between, or what is the effect? What is the effect of the extract? Bigyan niyo ako ng extract. Ano? Sige, kahit ano. Calamansi. On what? On the skin? Bakit? On the color of your armpit. Sige. Sige. What is the effect of calamansi extract on the color of Mr. Rice's armpit? Ganun. Diba? Cause effect. You have the extract and then you have the changing of the color of the armpit. So you cannot say, I'm going to design or create a calamansi extract because that's not. So the most proper is come up with questions. What is the effect? So that's your main question. And then you've got your specific problems or your sub-problems, which will ask now the hows. How are you going to answer this big problem? Parang concentration. What is the effect of different concentrations of the calamansi extract on color of skin? Armpit skin. Okay. Pero hindi pwede mag-human testing ha. Ito pa rin yung nakikita ko. Inuubo ang klabo. Hindi. Ano ba diyan? Damo. Tapos, so how did you test this? I had 4 classmates who volunteered to be my human subjects. Ito, favorite ko to, kuto. Gili kayong mga bata sa kuto. Papatay yung kuto. Paano namatay? Siyempre nalulod sa extract. Oo. Pero yung iba ganito. We turn this extract into soap. And then, we tested this on our classmates who had lines on their hair. Can you imagine kung ikaw teacher, gusto mo, rin ang takuto. Di ba hindi mo anuin yun? You will not be saying that. Ito pa, katol. Mahilig kayo sa mga katol. Pero may mga Visayas students sa ganun din yung binibigay sa amin. Gusto namin sampalin. Katol talaga. Yung parang katol. Anong ginagawa sa katol? Pinausukan daw yung mga neighbors. Hala, ikaw gamitin yung katol. Neighbor 1. Neighbor 2 gamitin yung isang katol. Paano kung toxic yung katol mo? Hindi namatay ang lamok. Ikaw namatay. So, nagtatawa kayo. Sino dito gumawa ng lansones coil? Ganon. Turning lansones into katol. Tae. Hindi rin pinapalampas yung tae. The effect of carabao manure on the growth of munggo. Guys, tumutubo naman ang munggo sa kahit saan. Tubig na, tutubo rin. It will turn into tawgi pa nga, di ba? Good for lumpia. But anyway, the thing is that, when you do this, there are so many rules you have to follow. So maganda yun, pa naman sa extract. Tapos si Dr. Ryan Chong, aking human subject. Sige sir, go! Ganon. That's not proper. Diba? But the thing is that you can ask your questions. You get that? The golden thread. You have your purpose or your aim, you have your objective, and then you have your problem. So usually it's the problem that comes first when you are writing your investigatory project report or proposal. So you have your research question, There's a main problem and then there are some problems. And then under the significance of your study, you explain the aim, the purpose. Yes. Okay. Hopefully gets now. Now, there are rules, criteria for when a problem is acceptable or not. SMART. What's the meaning of SMART? Okay. A is for attainable or achievable. That's your feasibility. Then R is relevant and results-oriented. Do not come up with a problem in which there is no result expected. Tumigil ka. Bakit mo pa ginagawa yan? So there should always be an expected result and it should also be relevant. Except if you're doing blue sky projects. You heard it first from me. Blue sky. What's blue sky project? In the Philippines, there has been a trend to do research that has application. If it's basic, it's like look down. Oh, basic research. Application, kaya yung mga malunggay in tinapay, malunggay in biscuit, mga ganun because it's application, applied research. Basic research is look down. But there's even a lower form down, the blue sky. Yung ginagawa mo lang siya kasi interesado ka. Because you're curious. So that's a blue sky project, and that's okay. Now, the National Research Council of the Philippines has this one strand in which you can apply for grant for a blue sky project because you're interested. Yung sinasabi mo, sino ba yung ano mo kanina, yung merchandiser mo? Donna? Cook? Ano siya? Si Hook, oo. Fabric merchant, merchant. So he was just curious about things, so he did it. Ngayon kasi parang high stakes and research. We do it because we need to win a fair. We do it because our institution is expected to come up with this kind of research. But before, you do it because you're curious. And I think this is one thing that we need to develop in our kids. Get them to be curious. Blue skies. Alright. And then of course, time-bound. Huwag masyado mangangarap na 3 years. Anong grade level na kayo? 11. Kung gusto nyo graduate, pang 1 year lang dapat ang research project. Okay? Okay, what's here? Can you see it from the back? Okay. Can paper be created from water hyacinth and peanut shells? What is wrong with that question? Answered by yes or no. So, we do away with that, although there are cases in which wala kang magagawa is answerable by yes or no. So, we do away with that. Another thing is, this is pseudo problem because the answer to that question is dependent on the decision of the researcher. Can paper be created? Kung gusto mo mag-create, why not? Kung ayaw, di no. So, it's poorly stated. So it's not specific. It also will not give you definitive answers to address a certain problem. Now, is there something wrong with it, or are you okay with it? How will different ratios of water hyacinth fiber to peanut shell fiber affect the final product? Let's do the evaluation using the SMART criteria. Is it specific?
Specific, yeah.
What's specific there? Okay, ratio of water to ratio of fiber to water hyacinth fiber to peanut shell fiber. But is it really specific? Yon, dapat na may mention yung ratios. So, anong ratio? 1:1, 1:2, etc. Because if I were like the designer of the experiment, I know that, these are the ratios I'm going to test. So, that makes it more specific. When you say specific, it's because it specifies the fibers to be used. But in terms of how much, then you have to be more specific. Is it measurable? Yeah. How are you going to measure that? The word effect. We use that a lot. We abuse it actually. Oh, anong effect ang gusto kong makita? Effect on? Sige. If you were making a fiber for your dress perhaps, textile, what is it that you want to measure? What do you want to find out? As in, oh, there... Nakatuloy na sila, hindi na kami makapag-isip ng isang code. Okay, effect. So what effect do you want to observe? Okay, durability, that's one. Some more? Okay, quality. But what about quality? Need some more. What is it about quality that you want to do? How will you measure quality? So durability, texture, color. So those have to be placed in your problems. Otherwise, the reader is left to guess. So that's one thing. That's one way. Next, is it something that's achievable? From that question, no. Kasi hindi mo talaga alam kung anong specifics. Diba? But of course, you're expecting a result, and mga 1 month lang daw yan. Pwede na. Ito. There's what we call pseudo-problems. If a research problem is to be decided on by the researcher, so the answer to that is a decision of the researcher, then that's a pseudo-question or a pseudo-problem. Is the second sub-problem a pseudo-problem or not? Can you read it? Kaya ba mabasa? What types of paper products can be created from the different outcomes? What types of paper products? Pakialam ko, mag-decision ka kung anong gusto mong paggamitan niyan. Diba? Again, it's a pseudo-problem. Because as a researcher, you have to decide. So what am I going to make this for? Craft paper, palengke paper, tissue. Oh, so you decide on that. Because when you decide on that, it becomes clear that this paper you will be developing will be used for this. And so, for example, craft paper, you don't expect craft paper to be thin. So you don't measure thinness or the thickness or thickness. If it's like paper that's meant for wrapping gifts, you expect it to be glossy. Diba? So the test you will be making will be based on the type or the use of the paper itself. So teachers, when you look at the problems of your students, go through the SMART. Isa-isahin mo. That's also a good way to actually practice yourself in terms of evaluating problems. Tapos kayo rin, bago kayo pumunta kay Ma'am at Sir, sandali. Specific, you talk. You talk to your classmate, you talk to someone who's not in your group. Chance nyo na, makipagkaibigan. So, I want feedback on this problem. Can you please take a look at this? Sometimes, what we do in research is, we ask somebody who's not from our field to read through our research questions. Or even to read through the whole paper. That way, there's a different perspective. Pag hindi niya naiintindihan, ibig sabihin, hindi yun naiintindihan ng iba. So, that's one way to check if something is understandable or not. So, what's the quality of waters surrounding the Humanhon mining site in terms of presence of heavy metals? Are you able to tell what the question wants to do or wants to answer? How so?
Because it's specific kay toward nakapagdaan karayag niya i-test kay quality of water surrounding ng Humanhon and nakaputang liwat kung paano siya i-measure and parameters on testing the quality of waters which is presence of heavy metals.
Okay, pwede pa rin mag-research teacher. Pero estudyante ka, di ba? So, yun. See that? Quality of water. Quality of water is a technical term. So when you say quality of water, there are different parameters to test whether something is good quality or bad quality. But there it becomes more specific because it's only measured quality of water based on presence of heavy metals. But it's even more specific because the site is there. So you know, oh, this is a mining site. This is an environmental assessment. So may ganun ka. And then, syempre, hindi lang dyan. What are the concentrations of chromium, nickel, and iron found in the water? So you know that, oh, okay, so they're going to measure those heavy metals. So it's more specific this time. And you know that measuring presence for heavy metals and concentrations would entail the use of a special instrument. Hindi lang yan tinatay-tay, nag-drop kayo. So, okay, we don't have a spectral for this, an atomic emission or atomic absorption spectral. So we will need this. Oh, we will need to go to VSU, we will need to go to UST in order for us to use, to get to to answer this problem. So nakikita niyo yun, how do you say that? Tinatahi-tahi niyo yun base sa inyong research question or research problem. What is the toxicity level of the identified heavy metals in the water? Toxicity level means that you're going to compare it to a standard. Because, for example, the World Health Organization, even DNR, they have standards for when the presence of a contaminant is still safe or not. So, as a reader, you know that the researchers will be comparing it to certain standards. So, I hope that you get the difference between this set of questions and the first one. Both sets of questions are coming from high school students. But this one went through around 5 to 6 times of revision. Kanina yung una, fresh yun, yung tipong fresh from the head. Pero this one, maraming beses yan. So it's a full-blown research that we did with the DNR Mines and Geosciences Bureau. But we did it with students and also with some faculty members. Kaya ba? Hindi pa naman mapapasnak, Sir Rolex? Pwede na raw. Ay, akala ko nakikinig kayo sa lecture. Hindi pala kayo nasabihan na okay na ang snacks. I was getting impressed pa naman with myself kasi they were looking so attentive. Parang, wow! Pati yung mga nagsiserve. Yung pala mga connection mo sa staff. Bibigyan naman namin yung snacks. Sige, I'll pause first, then talk to your seats, whatever stretch. One thing that I have seen is many of the SIPs from DepEd are already using the structure coming from Visayas. It's because we have trained this program. This has not been in project skills yet, but this has run for more than a decade. So we've trained a lot of teachers, and what we require from the teachers who are trained under us is you have to elevate your practice. So hindi pwede kung ano-ano lang binabasa ang ginagawa mo. So there you go. The parts would have the title page, table of contents. Yeah, the problem is set in chapter 1. Yung hit na hit din namin basahin at hit na hit ninyong gawin. Review of related literature. Diba? I think even the graduate students here. Okay, RRL. Nakakamatay. Kasi you need to do a lot of reading and, synthesize things, etc. And then, but, for your SIPs, chapters 1 and 2 are usually condensed. So you call it just the introduction. So your introduction would bear, the background of the study, and then the review of related literature is already integrated into it, and then it has your questions. The significance also integrates some of the things you have seen in your review of related literature. So ito na yung parang journal article format, IMRAD. IMRAD, I think your teachers heard of this. IMRAD, introduction, methods, results and discussion, and then your conclusion. And that's for a full paper. But for a proposal, it's just introduction, and then your methods section. Chapter 4 is the results and discussion. Okay. So a full paper, parang thesis siya, it has those chapters 1 to 5. But for an SIP, you can just condense chapters 1 and 2. Because the review of related literature is more key. Diba? And there should always be a list of references. A full proposal for us, or even a full scientific paper, we require appendices, communications, correspondences with LGUs, etc., permits, especially if you're doing environmental research, there needs to be permits. Pag nagkukolekta kayo ng wildlife, hindi ibig sabihin ng wildlife ay yung mga hayop-hayop na nakikita nyo dun sa gubat. Wildlife covers even the plants in the plaza. O yung mga Eleusin indica, mga ganon, it covers. So there's a gratuitous permit required for that. So take note of this, yung mga nag-environmental, make sure that you get the GPs. And then if you are doing research in a protected area like the SINP, you know what that is? Okay, the Summer Island National Parks is a protected area, so it's covered by law. You need to have the approval of PAMB, Protected Areas Management Board, before you can go in to do any collection. Hindi pwedeng tatago-tago lang naman kami. Ay, dito barangay ko, habihan ka sa dinila kita, makuha kita. So, water ski. Hindi ka pwedeng kumuha ng kahit tayo ng yung mga bad droppings. Hindi mo pwedeng kunin yun nung wala kang pahintulot sa PAMB. Pwede kang makasuhan. Kita, iwan na hindi. But there are rules for that. Okay. So, nandun yung references, and if it's chemical, the MSDS, material safety data sheet. So, kailangan din yun. I-require namin yun. Even if you're doing statistics, the raw data and the computations, we require that. But if it's for an SIP that you send over to a science fair, those would be, you can do away with that. I'm supposed to show you a real paper. Nasaan na yun? Sige. Digest muna. Ang kinakain nyo. Wait, by the way, you may ask your questions if you have questions. Sige, I'll give you 10 seconds to talk together, and then I will ask the tables at the back to. So this uses the email format because this was submitted to a particular competition. It actually won a first runner-up award in an international competition in Thailand. And so that has something to do with finding out whether the fishes in the Tacloban City market have heavy metal presence. So what do you think is the answer? Meron bang heavy metal sa mga isda? Yes. Saan galing ang isda? Sa summer. Oo. Mga tuna, etc. especially. But you know, tuna is migratory, so we can always see that kasi sila somewhere. May ganun. But the other fishes have. So anyway, what I'm showing you here is a full paper with the ingal. So it starts with that. Ganyan siya. Di ba ang ganda niya ng tingnan? Huwag na muna natin basahin. But it has an abstract. So your abstract is a condensation of the whole study. So it's supposed to have the objectives, it's supposed to have the methods, findings, and then the relevance. So yun yung kinukondense mo. Usually it's 200 to 300 words with the key words. So, ano ba nandiyan? Ayun. Ang gusto lang sabihin nila is, sige, makakasi nila kayo kumain ng isda. In Tacloban, the fish comes from either summer or the environments of Tacloban, yung mga namin doon. But what they found out is, there was already, for tuna, there is a high presence of heavy metals. So it could be coming, assumption to ha, it could be coming from the areas where there are mining sites. So we know where those areas are. Because your heavy metals, you cannot really get it just by that being in the environment. It has to be extracted from ores. So, posibleng naging run-off siya, papunta sa dagat, tapos umiinom ba ang isda? Parang hindi yata. Depende daw sa isda kung seawater. Nakita ko ito, kung seawater or freshwater, kung umiinom or whatever. But anyway, that's for another, kung umiinom yung isda. But the thing is that, the muscles can absorb. So the tuna has higher amounts of heavy metals. Yung flesh niya, yung kinakain natin. But the other fishes, the smaller ones, the smaller species, they don't have that in their flesh. But they have it in the gut. The gut. Yung mga laman-laman. So, we say, hindi naman kami nakam ng mga gut. But in areas such as Pangasinan, Ilocos, they turn that into, what do they call it? Parang, yun yung pagkain, pinipreserve siya, inaasin, etc. Tapos, yun, kinakain nila yun. Yun? Whatever. Kasi iba yung makakain nila, diba? So, yung iba, niluluto din yan in part. So, the thing is that, sa maliliit na fish, meron siya. So, what we do is, you don't eat the gut extra. But it's okay to eat the flesh. Diba? So, inisip mo yun, hindi na ako kakain ng isda, kami na lang. Pero dapat ganun. Parang hindi dapat ganun. Masarap lang talaga ang karne. Okay. And then you've got your introduction. So if you see there, so the relevance, the significance is already included there. But at the same time, the research questions, because in the real paper, in the full scientific paper, the research problems are posed as questions. But here, it's posed as objectives. So, if you see here, nasa na yan? This study aimed to determine. So, those are research objectives. We don't put the research questions on a condensed version of the introduction. But in a full scientific paper, the research questions are written down. Okay. And then, you've got here the methodology. One of the things I still see in SIPs coming from public schools, the methodology is written down like recipe type. Number 1, step 1, step 2. You don't do that. Because the methods have to be in paragraph form. Everything, the details have to be placed in paragraph form. So for example, sample selection, you know that the dates are this and that. So my specificity din yan dapat yan. The details have to be there. Why? Because let's say you're from Basay and then you're from Calvayo. You want to replicate the study done by kids from Basay. By looking at the methods, you're able to see, this is what I'm going to do. Pwede mo siyang ma-replicate. Hindi ba pangungokyo yun? Hindi. Kasi, one of the natures of science is, it has to be replicable. Diba? It has to be replicable. So, if I have questions about the veracity of the data from that institution, I will do it. Maybe have your protocols, etc. Then you do it. So, dapat nandiyan lahat. Although in journal articles, everything again is condensed. Because in journal articles, there's the assumption that the readers are those in the field. So alam mo pag sinabi, we use the FCAS is used, you know the details for that. Okay? Tapos, sample selection, materials and instruments, even the reagents that we use, the instruments that we use, those have to be specified. Why? Because let's say I use analytical grade, but then you use something that you got from the pharmaceutical, sa pharmacy. Magkaiba ang quality nun. So dapat, nilalagay mo siya dyan. Let's say, nag-antibacterial ka, pero ginamit mo lang rubbing alcohol. So we know that that's just 70%. Tama ba? 70%. But if you say absolute ethanol, so we know that that's 99% ethanol. So you eliminate the bagay. Okay, pati sample prep, analysis, data analysis. Meron mo dyan, pati yung mga isda, may picture yung isda. Parang yan ba? Ano ba yung isda? Tingnan. isda na yan? Ano yan? Matambaka? Masarap yan. Nasa gut extract, don't worry. Yan is letter T. The tunog with the letter T. Turingan. Turingan. The dorsal part. Asan ang dorsal part ng isda? Asan ang dorsal part ng isda? Dito sa likod. Yun yung mataas. Yung heavy metal presence. Kasi yung dorsal area yung lalaki yung heavy metals. So you see that? So pati tables. The tables are laid down, of course. And then of course, there's the discussion. In some organizations, a conference, they require results and discussion integrated together. But in others, the results are different from the discussion part. So ask if your science fair, science congress would require the integration of the results and discussion or different siya. Pag wala naman, integrate nyo na naman. Mahirap mismo kasi nag-results ka tapos mas marami kang gusto sabihin dito sa discussion. Wala ka na. Sa table ba ulit yun? Refer to table chu-chu-chu. Okay. And there's a summary and conclusion. Your conclusion again is the answer to your research problem. Mali yan nagko-conclude ka, hindi naman tinanong. Mali rin yung nag-experiment ka, wala kang tanong. Hindi pwedeng ganon. So the summary and the conclusion. And of course, if there needs to be an acknowledgement, we require acknowledgement of our collaborators. Especially if there's a funding agency or if there is a government agency which helped us. So dapat nasa acknowledgement. And of course, the references. Ganyan na ang itsura ng papers na nire-require nila survey. Hindi siya 2 columns, pero ganyan na yung format niya. Diba? Evolve. Okay. Are you inspired? Or are you in despair? Dapat hindi in despair, dapat inspired. Ako alam. Yes, ma'am. Ano, ma'am? Oo. Hindi. Ganito. Sa school namin, depende sa inyo. Pero kasi ganito. Like sa amin, we require the full paper and then we make them condense. We ask them to condense it to the journal format type. Oo. But they need to go through the whole process of doing chapters 1 to 5. But if you are like doing it because you're going into a congress or research, science fair, whatever, pwede yun i-condense. So, tapos natin you're only given 3 months to do your research. Tama ba? Mga tag 3 months lang yun, di ba? Or sometimes 1 month kasi sa science club na yun. Oo, di ba? So, i-condense nyo na. Oo, don't go for the chapters 1 to 5. Pwede natin siyang i-check. Okay. I know that you were just joking when you said nakaka-despair siya. Dapat hindi. Besides started, our research program started not as a program, it was just a subject. And then we had nothing except a few thermometers, etc. So yung batch nito, parang very simple ang mga research projects nila. Kasi matanda na siya. Yung mga pupok-biga, kung ano-ano. Yung batch nito, medyo nag-level up, pero ganun pa rin pupok-biga, etc. Hindi ko malala yung batch nung. Pero ganun din yun. It was only like 10 years ago when we converted everything to something that is a professional research institution. So we asked help from the management to get us instruments, etc. In fact, our laboratory has better resources than many state universities. It's because we're under DOST. So DOST kami, kaya may pera noon. Meron kaming budget cut ngayon, 360 million. So wala na kami noon. But the thing is that, Okay lang na mangarap, okay lang na magsimula ng pupok-piga, mga lamok ang pinapatay, because you also started there. Mga anay building dito likod, oo, yung mga garapata. O, di ba, nadidiin talaga ako pag garapata yung study. Parang ano ginawa niyo? Pinisak lang. May dugo-dugo siya. Yung gano'n. Tapos tinignan namin siya sa pusa, sa dog, etc. But that's the thing, you start somewhere. If your school is not doing it yet, start somewhere. Because you're not getting anywhere if you don't start simple. So definitely, kasi kami sa Pisay, nagsimula kami sa wala. Yung mga, ano bang tinatawag, meron din kami mga drama-drama na mga kuto. O diba, kala nyo kayo na. Nagsimula rin sa mga kuto, mga lamok, mosquito larvae, ginagawa ng cockroach. Imagine, pero may isang bata na so many years back, Ma'am, I read somewhere, this is something really new, that cockroaches have a particular immunity to this bacteria. And so what do you want to do? I want to extract the cockroach secretion so that, antibacterial thing. Sinasabi ko lang niya, nasusuka na ako. Tapos yung that time, wala pa kami katulad ngayon na we have a research teacher and then we have advisor. So, pag teacher ka, ikaw rin yung advisor. So, can you imagine, i-blend daw yung cockroach, tapos diba, kadiri siya. So, syempre, ekes. Bakit, for health reasons, and gano'n. But that's the thing, you start from there. And then, you level up. Okay? So, I hope that this first day of training is not going to make you despair. We're showing you practices, we're showing you what we have because that's one way for us to share with each other's resources. Diba? Mental resource, physical resource, beauty.
Like and subscribe to the L&D channel on YouTube using the link youtube.com/@learn2lead channel. For more information, visit our NAAP Region 8 official Facebook page at facebook.com/NAAPR08.